Thank you for listening to the Conformed to Christ podcast, where we seek to engage the mind, affect the heart, and call people to follow Christ. Jay Jones, and I'm here for a Free-for-All Friday with George Mays.
Here we are.
George, it snowed yesterday.
It did. How much snow did you get?
A lot, like way more than is typical.
Right.
And it was very rare because usually when it snows in southwest Oklahoma, if it snows, it's like tiny little bitty snowflakes. And the wind blowing 45 miles an hour and the snow's going sideways.
Right.
But yesterday, they were big. It was like
it was an actual snow.
Yeah, big snowflakes, like at least the size, I don't know, what's bigger than a quarter?
I don't know, $50.
Okay. And they were just falling straight down and they were just floating down. And I was like, is this what snow is? Is this what it's like to be somewhere where it snows?
It wasn't windy.
Yeah, it was crazy. I was like, I'm just going to go outside and stand and watch it.
Did you go play in it?
No, we didn't go play in it. I did watch it for a little bit. It was amazing. It's a super rare thing.
It is.
If you're not from Oklahoma, like we say, the wind, whatever. If it snows and you get out of the way, because it's like nasty snow.
Most of the time we get ice.
Yeah.
That's usually what we get.
It's that snow that hurts when it hits you.
Right. Yeah.
But yesterday it was that soft, gentle, fluffy snow.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah. Super rare.
It'll be gone. It'll be gone today, though.
School got canceled and all that stuff.
Did your school get canceled?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they did. They canceled.
I'm pretty sure Lawton was still.
They still went?
Mm-hmm,
I bet there were so many crashes in Lawton. Larry, what do you think? You didn't see
I
any?
don't know. The streets look like they were okay.
Yeah. Free snow day. What a special time.
I mean, when it was snowing at the house, it was hitting the grass, but the concrete it wasn't sticking to the concrete. So
before I started recording, I sent a message to my kids. They're out of school, recording a podcast for at least the next hour. Please don't call or text me. What do you think one of them did? Texted back, okay.
Yeah. Right.
Just now received. All right, so Free for All Friday. Let's jump in. We got I think the maybe like two or three that are going to make a theme here in a second. But let's start off with Barry Bonds. This is going to come up continually, I think. Barry Bonds did not make it into the Hall of Fame again.
Right.
Greatest, I think, probably the greatest baseball player all around. Even most home runs. I mean, we could list all the stats, and it's not even close. Best baseball player ever to play the game. But he is continually not selected for the Hall of Fame. And people lose their minds every year over it. And the controversy, George, is that he took performance-enhancing drugs.
Okay.
Not only that, I believe he perjured himself. I'd have to look this up. Did you were able to find anything on that?
No.
When I told you about it?
I didn't.
Barry Bonds.
Who was inducted this time? I know David Ortiz, right?
Yeah,
was there anyone else that was inducted?
I mean, I don't know. I think Ortiz was the first time up on the ballot, and he got in. Okay. That's why I heard about that. Okay. Yeah, I don't know, but
he's the only one that I heard of, so I don't know if there was anyone else that I would even know.
So Barry Bonds was charged with 5 counts of perjury and obstruction of justice.
Okay.
Stemming from his 2003 testimony before a federal grand jury in the investigation of Balco for supplying steroids to various top athletes in the San Francisco area. There's actually a podcast called American Scandal, which dealt with the whole Balco thing. So it's like it's a real thing that happened, So apparently he lied. So this gets into why is he not in? All right. People make this more complicated than it is. I think so. Did I just lose my thing? I did. I just deleted it. Okay. So there is a character clause in the Baseball Hall of Fame that. So I'm going to pull it up. The character clause, Baseball Hall of Fame. So people aren't just selected based off of their skill. There's supposed to be what's taken into account is the player's record, their ability, integrity, sportsmanship, character, and team contribution. Okay, there's the clause.
Okay.
And so the people aren't selecting him, so they're saying, look, he cheated, and he has some character problems. Obviously, if you've been convicted of or charged with lying, you perjured yourself, 5
Right.
counts. So there's some character issues. So he's not getting in. People lose their minds. But why are people so mad about it? People didn't used to be so mad about it, like right after he retired. It was kind of like taken as like everybody knew it was just he wasn't getting in. Roger Clemens also is not getting in. He also took steroids.
Right.
McGuire probably never get in, right? But people now are just like, let them all in. So I was having this conversation with Drake, and I showed him this clause. I said, look, people forget, or maybe they know there's this clause. That probably it's true as the latter. They know there's the clause, the character clause. The problem is society has progressed so much over the past 20 years, nobody cares.
Right.
So they don't care if a player had integrity or character or if they cheated or anything, right? And it's no question Barry Bonds cheated. I mean, this dude in the last, 6 years of his career put on like 40 pounds of muscle.
The guy was huge.
It wasn't even a little muscle. It was like 40 pounds of pure muscle.
Yeah.
But still, that's not going to hit the ball for you. So here's kind of my solution, because the way the culture is, you need to remove the clause, and you need to make sure that everyone knows the people that get into the Hall of Fame are only there based off of their skill.
Right.
Because Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens had the numbers to be first-time ballot picks for the Hall of Fame before anyone ever started using steroids.
Okay.
They had all the numbers. They were Hall of Famers. Now the question is, like, I guess they're being kept out because of this character clause. So if people want them in, just do the honest thing and say, we don't care about character anymore.
Right.
So we're removing the clause. Cooperstown is only for people of skill. And then they'd have to let Pete Rose in too.
Right.
Because he was super shady.
Do you know if there are character clauses for NBA and
I don't know.
NFL Hall of Fame?
I don't know.
I mean, that used to be a big part of being an athlete, right?
Well, it used to be a big part of everything.
You were
right? Like, it's just kind of what we expected.
Yeah.
It was what was expected of just like of men.
Mm-hmm.
You're competing. Like, there's some type of nobility to competing on an athletic field against other people. Compete according to the rules. I mean, even Paul references that back in the day. The insane Roman Empire, they still had rules in their competitions.
Mm-hmm.
You don't compete, you're disqualified. You don't compete according to them, you're disqualified. Yeah. Character used to matter in America in a lot of ways. And
right. It used to matter that your leaders had character.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's a reason that Biden was never going to be up for president for a long time. It's because he was a known liar.
Right.
I mean, there's receipts on it.
Oh, there's video.
So many receipts.
Yeah, there's
going back to where he's a young man of his numerous lies.
Uh-huh.
And he even had to step down from, was it a presidential race he was in?
I think so.
When
a
he was
long time ago.
Yeah, when he was a young man. Time ago. Because of his...
It was, there's like a Dan Reathers video where he exposes him for his lies.
Yeah. Trump would have never been the nominee of the Republican Party.
Right.
Not in a million years.
Right.
But see that we've progressed so much, character doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter on either side, honestly.
No, they'll make excuses. I'm sure you saw the clip of Biden calling the Fox reporter an SOB.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I was just surprised.
Did you see the CNN spin article?
I didn't see it.
Because if Trump had, Trump was always going after the media.
Yeah.
And they were always bashing him.
Uh-huh.
But here's Biden doing the same thing. And CNN puts out this spin article, why what Biden said is not as bad as anything that Trump did.
Well, here's
it was exactly what you would expect from CNN.
Here's the deal with the Trump, the way he would like lash out at people and the stuff he would say. For me, I almost feel like with Trump, it's never personal. That's just who he is.
Right.
He's just a coarse man.
Right.
Like, I'm not saying he's right. Like, I would never encourage a leader to be that way. But that's who he is. I don't think he doesn't mean anything personal by it ever. But if you're kind of attacking him and he perceives that, he's coming back at you and
Yeah.
he's going to one up you and he's going to say mean things.
Right.
But if you watch that Biden clip, that was personal.
Well, I think that
was personal.
I think that's who Biden is too. I think because he thought his mic was off.
Yeah, it was
it was personal. I guess he got caught on a hot mic.
Yeah.
But
he meant it,
I think that's who he is.
Yeah.
I think that's who he is. I mean,
Yeah.
people like to talk about Biden like he's, this respectable gentleman. He's never been that.
Yeah.
He's never been that way.
Remember he told
you watch his campaigning and the way that he would talk to people. You see how he lashes out.
He does.
He lashes out. Like, I don't think Trump is lashing out in anger, but I think if you watch Biden, you'll see that he lashes out in anger.
Yeah. He told the guy he doesn't work for him. Remember that?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he tells somebody let's go outside and find out or whatever. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish he would have.
Dude, he walks like.
Well, he probably would have had that chain that he had with Corn Pop.
He walks like he's walking on ice. Have you watched that? Like the ground's made of ice except for it's grass.
Yeah.
Like you're not going out with anybody. the ship has sailed on that.
He'd have that chain
With Corn Pop.
Remember the chain that he had with Corn Pop.
That's right. It's like the way he tells that Corn Pop story. It reminds me of what's that old like musical where they're in New York City, and they got the chains.
West Side
Story. That's what I think of when I hear the Corn Pop story. There was Corn Pop with a rusty knife, and Joe Biden broke out his chain.
Yeah, Biden with his comb, he's
slicking his hair
back.
Yeah,
yeah.
Too much fun.
Well,
too much fun. Character.
Integrity.
Integrity.
Biden should have just pulled a Thabiti for that reporter and said, "You know what? Keep my name out of your mouth."
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So are we segueing into this
might as well.
Thabiti Owen Strand debacle?
Character matters. It matters whether you're an athlete or a politician, and especially as a pastor.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't turn that off just because you're on social media.
Yeah.
Right.
Keep your name out of my mouth, clowns. That's pretty much what he said, right?
That's exactly what he said. I've got these tweets. You can pull them up on the screen. Owen Strand. So going back, Thabiti is on a panel. And I was watching clips from this panel, and it's real bad. But there's an offhand remark that Thabiti makes about if your pastor is either explicitly or even implicitly white supremacist, whatever that means. Like there's no definition of what that is. I don't know. It's okay to leave your church. I would say, yeah, if your pastor's a racist.
For sure.
It's good for you to leave your church. But then he encourages people. Maybe you have a pastor who you don't agree with 100%, but they're a good pastor. You probably should stay in that church and support. I think he says him or her.
He did.
So he makes kind of this offhand remark that you should stay and support your pastor, and it could be a man or a woman.
Right.
Owen Strand, he picks up on this and he tweets, "So sad to see this. Thabiti has affirmed all sorts of woke ideology and now affirms women pastors. Please, God, bring this man to repentance. How we all need the Lord."
Mm-hmm.
To which Thabiti replies, "Hey, at Owen Strand, first keep my name out of your mouth." That's the kind of response that you would expect from a respected pastor, right?
Right.
He goes on in a second tweet. He says, "This goes for you too, at Tom Buck." Tom Buck is a pastor down in Texas. He's part of the Conservative Baptist Network. He says, "You clowns out here ravaging the Lord's church with made-up controversies and the slander of faithful Christians. You need to take a moment to attend your own souls. For Titus 3:10 and 11 describes your warped, self-condemned ways well." Well, all right.
Oh, okay then.
Going back, and he he goes back and affirms that he is not an egalitarian. I think that they jumped on this too fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes I think Owen
Yeah.
can jump on it too fast, without listening to the whole clip and really, he says, second, at least learn to ask a question before you take an impromptu pronoun and wrongly ascribe an entire theological position to someone. I think that's right. I think they jumped on it too fast.
Well, can I read what Thabiti was accusing them of?
Yeah.
He's accusing them of violating Titus 3, beginning in verse 9. Avoid foolish controversies, genealogies, dissensions, and quarrels about the law, for they are unprofitable and worthless. As for a person who stirs up division after warning him once and then twice, have nothing more to do with him, knowing that such a person is warped and sinful, he is self-condemned. So, to Thabiti, I guess the issue of women pastors falls in this category of things that aren't worth arguing about.
Yeah,
that's the way I take his supposed correction of these guys.
Yeah.
Which in a way is, but it's what he's saying is he's saying, look, this is not a big deal.
Right.
Even though he would say he doesn't hold to it personally, it's not that big a deal for others to.
Right. And that was kind of his response on his Twitter thread, is that I'm still a complementarian. I don't think, and someone went and looked at his church's website and they still affirm that only men should be elders.
Right.
The problem with saying this is not a big deal, and he said, you have to be conscious that there are egalitarians in the audience. The problem, I think, if you go to 1 Timothy chapter 2, where Paul says, I don't permit a woman to teach or hold authority over a man. If you can make that say anything other than I don't permit a woman to teach or have authority over a man, then what else can you twist the scriptures to say?
A lot of things. That's historically, a lot of things happens. That's the first step.
And when you start seeing a lot of these women who are preaching to men, Beth Moore being a kind of a prime example, they start to fudge on some other things.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a downward slide, because now you can start kind of messing with other passages. So I would say that I guess interpreting this in a different way and saying that this is not a big deal. I don't think that women pastors is a salvific issue, but I do think that the hermeneutic behind getting around what Paul says can turn into a salvific issue.
Yeah, I should have saved this. I saw someone, he made a pretty long thread about this, because he said, look, here's the way kind of the argument goes, is they'll say, look, you Reformed folks who are confessional, you don't argue about baptism. You don't throw each other under the bus like this. So he's saying baptism is a second-tier issue, where we would put that, historically, and we would say, yeah, we agree with that. Baptism is a second-tier issue. And we have different churches, there's Baptists, there's Presbyterians, but we support each other, we cooperate with each other, even in missions and other things. But now what they've done is they're trying to make women pastors kind of the equivalent. And say, look, you don't divide on baptism.
Right.
You shouldn't be doing that either when it comes to women pastors. And I can't remember who it was. It was brilliant, but the little thread was, look, we've had creeds, and confessions going back 500 years over this stuff. And guess what? There's never been ever one that affirmed women pastors.
Right.
Egalitarianism does not have a creed or confession. It's never been considered a second tier in the way people are trying to make it second tier. Makes total sense, right?
Yeah.
It never has. It's only a modern invention that has come about because of the feminist movement.
Right.
That's it. So you can't equate it to the same thing.
Yeah.
Because really, it's just blatant rebellion.
Yeah.
Never would have been possible had the culture not turned the way that it turned.
I was listening to John Harris, his podcast Conversations That Matter, and he was looking at this panel that Thabiti was a part of. It's part of the Jude 3 project, which is supposed to be an apologetic ministry, and it has an orthodox theological statement. It's kind of a modified Apostles' Creed. Mm-hmm. But he said that people are jumping on the wrong thing. They're jumping on this little phrase, and they're not looking at the whole panel discussion. And so he was looking at bigger clips of the panel. And there are people, this is supposed to be an evangelical conservative organization that's orthodox, and they had people that were promoting abortion and transgender and LGBTQ, and Thabiti's there in the middle of it, and he's not like affirming this stuff, but he is kind of staying quiet on it. He's kind of going along with this is just kind of a spectrum, and we can disagree on these things. Mm-hmm. And there's bigger problems than just this little phrase that he, this little pronoun that he uses. There's more. So when he's saying you clowns out here ravaging the Lord's church with made up controversies and slander of faithful Christians,
while he sits on a panel with people that are LGBTQ affirming.
Yeah.
That's like as if that's not ravaging the church
and
a millionfold.
And some of these are trying to say, the Bible's quiet on some of these things, and it's not clear on some of these things, and there's multiple interpretations for these passages, and they're acting like the passages on homosexuality are open for interpretation. And Thabiti's he's kind of going along with it. He's kind of going along with what they're saying. He's trying to ride the fence, is what it sounds like from the clips that I was watching. He's trying to I'm still orthodox here, and he's saying a lot of good things about how you interpret the Bible and things like that, but he's also not trying to push back against these people. And this is supposed to be an evangelical, like orthodox organization. He should be able to just say, look, what you're saying is wrong. Here's why. He should have the freedom to do that, but instead he's just kind of going along, and it's more than there's more going on here with Thabiti than just him saying
yeah, this is a big problem.
She or her, so when it comes to pastors.
And but that irony of this whole thing is that he would throw that bomb out there at Strand and is it Joe Buck?
Tom Buck.
Tom Buck.
Did you just say Joe Buck?
I don't know who Joe Buck is.
That's the baseball announcer that everyone hates.
That's the guy everyone hates to do the World Series. Find somebody else, please. And so he goes at him right with Titus 3, and saying that they're quarrelsome, whatever. These
foolish controversies,
and that but then the key word, that are ravaging the Lord's church,
right?
As if sexual immorality is not ravaging the Lord's church, LGBTQ is not ravaging the Lord's church, abortion, having your church filled with murderers and pastors that affirm murder is not ravaging the Lord's church.
Yeah.
Listen to this. I'm just going to read from Ephesians 5, beginning in verse 3. Okay. I think it's time to take the gloves off with Thabiti.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where his friends are, like Mark Dever. Like, where are you at, dude? Like, was he ever your friend? Was Thabiti ever your friend? You're just going to let him go this way?
We were talking a couple of days ago about if Thabiti had ever been at the Shepherds Conference, and you said no. Mm-hmm. I think he preached at a master's college chapel service.
Really?
So I think he has been out there, and I think that he has preached.
Wow.
Maybe not at the Shepherds Conference.
I could have. I can't recall him.
Yeah, maybe not at the Shepherds Conference, but he preached a chapel service apparently.
Yeah. So listen to this. But sexual immorality and impurity or covetousness must not be named among you, as is proper among the saints. Let there be no filthiness, nor foolish talk, nor crude joking, which are out of place, but instead let there be thanksgiving. For you may be sure of this, that everyone who is sexually immoral or impure, or who is covetous, that is, idolater, has no inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of these things the wrath of God is coming upon the sons of disobedience. Therefore do not become partakers with them, for at one time you were darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of the light. For the fruit of light is found in all that is good and right and true, and try to discern what is pleasing to the Lord. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. For it is shameful to even speak of the things that they do in secret. But when anything is exposed by the light, it becomes visible. So just ask yourself a question. Here's Thabiti legitimizing. When you sit on a panel, you legitimize the other people on the panel, right? So you're there. You're not confronting them in their darkness. He may not be actually physically taking part in.
Well, it throws shade on this entire Jude 3 project,
Right.
that they present themselves. I went to the website. You can go to the Jude 3 project. I think it's Jude 3 project.org maybe. And they present themselves as an Orthodox conservative movement,
Right.
an apologetics organization. So it casts some doubt on exactly what's going on here when they have the people that they have on this panel.
Sure. And so we'll maybe use this to segue the Bible. We'll use the Bible as a segue into the J.D. Greear thing. Why isn't Thabiti why is he legitimizing people that are openly supportive of LGBTQ movement?
Yeah.
The Bible says it's shameful.
Mm-hmm.
It's shameful to even talk about what they do in secret.
Yeah.
The Bible calls it darkness. But you want to come at Strand as somebody who is ravaging the Lord's church. You're sitting next to people who are doing 100 million-fold more damage.
Right.
Right.
Now, I do think that Owen jumped on it maybe a little too fast.
Sure.
For the wrong reason.
Uh-huh.
He should have listened to the whole panel, because there's one person on there that she was like, I'm pro-choice, LGBTQ. I'm probably as far left, on all these issues. And what we need to see is that there's room for all of us. And Thabiti needed to say, no, there's not.
Mm-hmm.
So it was weird. I did find this other tweet that I thought was funny from him. I wasn't even looking for this. I was just looking through his Twitter threads, and he has this picture. I don't know if you can pull it up or not. There it is.
Oh, goodness gracious.
I just thought it was funny.
All right, you got to describe it for the listener.
So there's a picture of two Native Americans. It's a black and white picture.
Is he getting something out of a stream?
Yeah, he's getting something out of a stream, and there's a woman standing behind him. It's very peaceful, and the it says, I don't even know why he would come across this this Twitter, Native Red Cloud. I don't know. It says, we were not poor people. We were happy with what we had and content to only take what we needed. And it's attributed to Native American.
Mm-hmm.
And Thabiti writes, love this. I don't know what all is going on here, but he's acting like Native Americans were all just this peaceful, loving, like hippies, basically, like
right.
nature loving, and they were at peace, and they had all they only took what they needed.
They lived in perfect harmony with the environment.
And then the white man came and just ravaged them.
Right. They were living in perfect harmony with each other and with the environment. Yeah, only taking what they needed, which he forgets. I think he forgets that the Native Americans had black slaves. There's a little inconvenient truth for Thabiti.
Right.
Yeah. And you guys are free to look that up. It's not like one tribe. It's like a bunch of tribes. And then there's even this strange.
There were some peaceful ones, and they were the ones that were being enslaved.
Well, yeah. I mean, so the history of the Native Americans. If you're not going to, I can't use the term whitewash because that's racist, right? if you're not going to whitewash history, let's come up with a new term. If you're not going to woke wash history, there we go.
Okay.
If you don't woke wash history, what you understand is that Native Americans were just like humans all across the rest of the planet.
Right.
They were at war with each other pretty much nonstop. They would raid each other. The strong would oppress the weak. For instance, the Comanche Nation, which is where we live, I mean, there's a book called Empire of the Rising Sun. I believe that's the name of it. And he'll outline in there what they were like. So they were pretty much like Great Plains Vikings. They would
Yeah.
raid you.
Okay.
Anyone, I think, under the age of 5 would be killed. So they'd kill babies and anyone under the age of 5 because they're youthless. They're just baggage. They don't want to carry you around.
Yeah.
But everyone under the age of 5 would become a slave up till like 13, I think, 13, and then they'd kill everyone. So if you lived through the raid, they'd kill you. If you're over 13, under 5, they'd kill you too. And then they'd take you as a slave. Seems pretty harmonious and peace-loving.
Right.
They were known, I've said this before, they were known for executing people in like incredibly cruel ways.
Right.
So one way around here, we got fire ants.
Uh-huh.
They would, maybe they raided you, George. They saw you traversing the with your other Native American peace-loving people, and they said, "Oh, there's another peace-loving man. Let's go borrow some goods from him." And they go over there and they kill your family and they tie you up to a pole, stick you in the ground on a fire ant mound, and cut your eyelids off. Let the fire ants kill you. Someone sent Thabiti some real history.
Right.
Right? And the most important thing, which was brought up, is if you actually believe the gospel, right, they were all perishing and dying in their sin.
Right. Yeah. This idea that they were peace loving and everything was okay. Let's just assume that that's true. Let's just assume that peaceful, at peace with the environment and with other tribes, that they only took what they needed. Let's just assume all that's true. They still were pagans.
Mm-hmm.
They still were pagans.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to read too much into this tweet. I have no idea why he's retweeting this, and I don't know. But to act like leaving them alone for them to perish in their sin is better than what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And there's sin on the side of the Europeans also.
Mm-hmm.
And the Europeans came and they were not peace loving either.
Right.
But God brings good out of evil, and the gospel has gone to Native Americans, and so there are Native Americans that will be in the kingdom, rather than in hell.
Right.
Because Christianity came across the Atlantic and came to North America.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to woke wash.
Yeah, don't woke
we don't
wash.
have to woke wash history. We don't have to ignore the evils on either side in order for us to say, but it is good that the gospel came.
Yeah. Yeah.
And God does bring good out of human sinfulness.
It's such a strange thing to do, though. I mean, try to and it's because he's been so influenced by wokeness. He really has. It's really kind of sad to see it.
Yeah.
But people don't do this with other parts of history, right? Like I told you, like I use the illustration that they're like land Vikings.
Yeah.
So it'd be like, we got Viking blood. Like I tell my children, you know what? They're just misunderstood. They actually lived in harmony, and they only did what they did in raiding England and Northern Europe because they were being threatened by the rise of power. And, they definitely did not rape everyone that they encountered. They didn't do that. That's something made up. That's something made up by Europeans to taint what people believe about Vikings, which is totally untrue. These dudes were absolute savages. And, thank goodness, the gospel conquered them.
Right.
The Viking gods fell. Christ conquered them.
Yep.
The Native American gods have fallen. Christ conquered them. And, and if you look historically, even in the Bible, God will raise up an evil nation. So if you want to say the colonizing was evil and all of that, I'm not opposed to any of that. But God uses the evil of men to bring about the spread of his kingdom in the world.
Yeah.
Um,
And to bring judgment.
and to bring judgment upon people. So and you look at this goes back to Abraham, God's promise to Abraham. That God tells Abraham, your people will go into Egypt for like 400 years. Is that how long it was? 400 years. Why? Because he's filling up wrath. He's patient, right? But he's filling up wrath toward the Canaanites, who are pagans,
Right.
who are doing all the pagan-y things, like the Native Americans and like the Vikings. But God's patient with them. And I think God, in God's character and nature, not wanting them to do it. So he gives them 400 years to correct course, to change course. They don't. So he sends in as judgment the Israelites.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you see happening when the Israelites become pagan?
Yep.
And we'll see this, we're getting ready to go to Habakkuk. You read the description of the Israelites, they've become pagan. They're doing the pagan things. And what does God do? He raises up another nation.
Mm-hmm.
They come in and they judge. And that's what Habakkuk is struggling with. How are you, God, who is good and holy and righteous and pure, going to raise up an evil empire to judge another nation? He's grappling with that.
Yeah.
And then you get into all of God's answers. And God's answers is they're going to be judged too.
Yeah.
And so, but still what you see is the purposes of God stand. And there's that beautiful clause in the middle of Habakkuk. It's almost like comes out of nowhere. It's all doom and gloom. Mm. It's that the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as he's covered this, all of that. Mm-hmm. And you're like, where did that come from? Well, it's a reminder that though man is evil and wicked, God's purposes, I don't know what the term is, they supersede all of that.
Right.
And no matter how evil and wicked men are, he uses people to judge other peoples. And from the midst of that, he does bring about a type of justice, right? So think about the colonial period. There were crimes that were being done by Native Americans. That stopped. Now it was replaced by other crimes, as historically it is. It has been done. But then God will judge those as well.
Right.
And that's kind of the pattern that goes through history.
Yeah.
It makes it a little scary for where we are now in America. I'll tell you that because
we're not immune
because we're pagan.
Oh yeah,
we're pagan now.
Mm-hmm.
And
if God has done this throughout human history, then we need to repent because it's not looking good.
No,
and God doesn't raise up like a righteous nation necessarily to enact judgment. He raises up wicked nations,
right?
And so
it's almost like God
says, we see China and we see Russia, and God could use either one of those to judge America.
Yeah, it's like God's like, oh, you want to see what happens,
right?
When you just go your own way and you throw off like the fabric of society, which is, I think, God's law, his moral law is like the fabric of the universe, right? I remember this paper a long time ago called The Universal Law of Everything, because I was really kind of obsessed at that time with like scientists, astrophysicists looking for this universal law that would like unite the big like astronomy laws and then the quantum realm. Like they don't match, so they're looking for this universal law. And I was reading the Old Testament a lot, and I was like, man, like God's moral law is like the fabric of culture, right? Pagan nations may at times, because they're made in God's image, implement parts of that, and the society will thrive. But when cultures start to throw off God's law, which I think is written on the human heart, it's clear, and the fabric of culture starts to unravel. You eventually get to a point where God doesn't tolerate how wicked things are anymore. Think about Nineveh.
Yeah.
For a time they repented, God relented.
Right.
Then they didn't anymore.
Yep.
So he raised up another more powerful, the Babylonians, and destroyed them.
Mm-hmm.
And we're kind of at that point now.
Yeah.
The fabric, it's all coming unraveled, right? It's all around us to see. The murder, the violence, the sexual immorality, the killing of babies, the transgenderism. We have everything here but human slavery. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves.
Even that we've got
Hidden. It's hidden.
It's hidden, right?
Not legalized. That's about the only thing we don't have that's out in the open.
Right.
Do we really think God won't act?
Mm.
Not looking good, my friend.
Yeah.
There's no prepping for that either. You got doomsday preppers.
Yeah.
There's no prepping.
Yep.
Only prepping is Christ. That's it. The just will live by faith.
Yeah. Mm.
So this went a different way than maybe I thought it was going to go. But
It did. Yep. Hey, let's talk about J.D. Greear.
Okay, we're 40 minutes in. This could end up taking another 2 hours, but let's see if we can keep it under maybe 30 minutes.
All right.
So J.D. Greear, I said it to you. I was like, dude, we got to talk about this.
Yeah.
So J.D. Greear pretty much called his critics or people who disagreed with him the synagogue of Satan.
Right. Okay, so he's preaching at a chapel service at Southeastern. What, Wake Forest, is that where they are? Outside of Wake Forest?
Southeastern?
Yeah.
I think so.
It's around there somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And that's where his church is.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So he's preaching, I don't even know, he's preaching from Revelation. What is
2?
it? Chapter 2.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of goes off the rails.
Yeah. I mean, he's had a lot of criticism, I think, but and we've criticized him on here.
Mm-hmm.
But our criticism of him kind of focused in on his ridiculous sermon from the beginning of Romans. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's gone pretty woke. He's put his support behind Ed Litton. All of that. I mean, he's just in the upper levels of the SBC and all the baggage that comes with that. But let's you got a clip pulled up for us?
Sorry. Southeastern Seminary is, I can't find the town exactly, but the closest big town that I can see is Raleigh. You got Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill. Like it's like a big metropolis area.
Okay.
So, but they all have Southern accents, and that's a problem, right? You see that?
I did see that.
That means they're all that they need to learn.
What is that from NAM?
Yeah.
Was that from NAM?
Yeah. The church planters that church plant in the north should get like voice coaches.
Yeah.
Because people with Southern accents, the stereotype is they're unintelligent.
Yeah, so no longer do you have to just divest yourself of your whiteness. You need to divest yourself of your Southern accent.
Yeah.
What has happened? Yeah, I saw that. Did they just put that out today? Or was that yesterday?
I'm not sure.
I don't
I mean,
this is from the North American Mission Board that
You know what's funny is if they would just phrase it in a way like this, they say, non-believers think people with Southern accents are unintelligent.
Yeah.
Consider trying to lose your Southern accent so that you might reach them better. I can get down with that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, that's like saying, Paul, you've got you've got a little bit of a Tarshish,
that's part
accent.
Part of me.
If you're going to go over to Rome and reach the Romans, you need to make sure that you're speaking with a Roman dialect. Like that's the exact opposite of what Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 1.
Right.
Like he's not coming with eloquence.
Right.
He's not trying to make himself sound smart. He believes in the power of the gospel.
Yeah,
So he's preaching the cross. NAM needs to spend more time training the missionaries on how to preach.
Yeah, that's
preach
right.
Jesus.
That's what I was going to say.
How to change their accent.
I understand the intent behind it, but the problem is it gets back to what we always talk about on here, and that's the pragmatism that drives everything.
Yeah.
If we do things this way, will have a successful church plant.
Uh-huh.
This is what works. This, and if you do this, it'll help you reach people better,
Right.
rather than just getting at it and saying pragmatism is really a man-made. These are man-made things.
Yeah.
And we just need to be faithful. So, there's that great book. I need to get you a copy of it. It's it made me think of this the other day. I got an ad. I get these ads sent to me. You probably get them too. It's like for sermon coaches or for like and this one was like $500 or something ridiculous, and it was about the art of preaching, the art form of preaching. Preaching is an art form, and when you learn the art form, you'll be better able to minister to people and reach people and blah blah blah. Well, there's this book called Paul's Theology of Preaching.
Okay.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And it gets, like I kind of geek out when I get into the backgrounds of stuff.
Right.
And it's all about the beginning of Corinthians and what's behind his language like that. He doesn't come in eloquent speech.
Right.
Because there were people would go watch public speakers.
Yeah,
it was
rhetoric.
It was like going to watch a football game.
Mm-hmm.
They'd go by the thousands, and they'd watch people give speeches.
Yeah.
And so there were apparently people who thought preachers should be that way.
Right.
And Paul comes in, and he's like, nope.
Yeah, and the super apostles of 2 Corinthians, they use that against him. You don't need to listen to Paul because
he's dumb. He's
dumb.
A dummy.
He's dumb.
He's got that dumb Southern Tarsus accent.
He gets beat up all the time and thrown into prison. That's not what it means to live in victory.
And he's like half white. Right? He's got to divest himself of that.
Play the J.D. Greear clip.
All right. Oh, there we go.
Oh.
Switch back over, Larry. I gotta connect the sound.
All right.
The Bluetooth is not connected.
I gotcha. Yeah. So he's preaching from Revelation chapter 2. Let me read this real quick.
Yeah, read it. I think I got it now.
Okay. So this is verses 8 through 11. Jesus says, "And to the angel of the church in Smyrna write the words of the first and the last who died and came to life. I know your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich, and the slander of those who say that they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Do not fear what you are about to suffer. Behold, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison that you may be tested, and for 10 days you will have tribulation. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. The one who conquers will not be hurt by the second death."
Hey, can you imagine like getting that letter? Hey, everybody, we got a letter from John.
Yeah.
Some of you are going to be dead in 10 days.
Yeah. But we've got, so they're being slandered.
Yeah.
They're being slandered by those who say that they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we take that with the New Testament theology, these are actual Jews.
Right.
But a true Jew is one who has been circumcised in the heart.
Right.
A true Jew is someone who's trusting in Jesus.
Whereas the synagogue, these people,
Mm-hmm.
if we look at what was going on,
Yeah.
and Paul addresses it a lot, they've added to the gospel.
Yeah.
They're saying Gentiles must become Jews by fleshly circumcision
Mm-hmm.
in order to become a true Jew.
Yeah.
And then they may become a Christian.
Yeah.
Right? That's not what's here.
Okay. So
Right?
you got it pulled up? Got it ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Hang on. I think I got it. There we go.
All right, here we go.
I got to go to 35 mark, right?
Some of you already know I celebrate my 20th year at the Summit Church this
Here we go.
year. It used to be that most of the criticism I got from the religious community came from so-called Christians on the left who criticized our naive commitment to inerrancy or our supposed clinging to outdated sexual ethics. But what has been more surprising and hurt even more has been the criticism that started to come from our friends.
I got a comment here. I just can't resist.
Okay.
He phrases the whole thing to present himself as an inerrantist.
Yes.
Because he says, look, I used to get criticized from the left for being an inerrantist.
Right.
And I don't buy this, but what hurt even more.
Uh-huh. He set himself up as
what hurt?
He's the faithful one.
How do you get hurt by people who are in darkness?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, he uses the terminology left. I'm not going to use the terminology left. I'm going to use the terminology that Paul uses.
Yeah.
Those in darkness, they don't hurt my feelings, George. Do they hurt your feelings?
No.
Like, they say stuff, whatever. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I mean,
what is this
how does it hurt you?
What's this outdated sexual ethic that he's talking about? Is that the Bible whispers about sexual sin, but it shouts about religious hypocrisy? Is that the outdated sexual?
Guess. I just want to know how he's hurt by that stuff.
Yeah.
I guess he never was brought with the sticks and stones may break my bones.
Is that
right? Or sticks, yeah, but what words will never hurt me.
That's in the Bible somewhere, right?
Yeah. He wasn't raised with that.
All right.
It just doesn't make sense to me. That just came across as
okay. Well, I mean,
it's not genuine.
He is setting himself up as I'm faithful. You know, we get attacked from the left for our sexual ethic, right? So I'm faithful. Yeah, I'm
used to.
That's what he said.
I doubt he does anymore. I doubt he does anymore after the Roman 1 sermon.
That's what he's doing. He's trying to set himself up as I've been faithful, and you can tell I've been faithful because I'm being attacked from people on the left.
That's right. But now it hurts even worse.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Attacked by the right.
Those whose belief systems I share so much in common with, who could not bear to have their own political idols challenged. 2020 was a difficult year for many, many reasons. But maybe for me as pastor...
2020 was not a difficult year. I don't understand this whole thing. Like, there was argumentation on both sides, but like the world kept going.
Yeah.
I don't get the whole obsession with all this stuff and the way that it's phrased, like political idolatry. I think that applies to maybe like 0.5% of people.
Yeah.
That would be on the so-called right.
Mm.
You know what I mean? The whole phrasing of it.
SBC president, the most difficult was that 2020 revealed that for a lot of people in our churches, their primary identity was political. It wasn't that it wasn't also Christian. They were also Christian, but the primary identity was political.
How?
Well, I mean,
there's my question. How?
Well, he's going to go on. He's going to talk about George Floyd. He's going to talk about the mask mandates.
Well, now
he's going to get to it.
Right.
But what that was the year where there were all the riots.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, you had George Floyd, you had Breonna Taylor. That was the Aubrey.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a lot of news stories about black men and women.
The election was going on.
Being killed.
The election.
The election.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's interesting to me about this stuff is the language that's always used, and it's thrown for those on the right. Again, I think a lot of these categories are imposed for, I guess, ease of description, but they're not biblical ways of talking about things. But what he's getting at is, and it's always the way it's attacked. Like, attack those who are on the so-called right because they're for Trump. If they were for Trump, they might not even have been for Trump, but they kind of hold to these right-wing ideas. They're attacked. Pastors who hold them are attacked continually. But somebody like J.D. Greear will never take the same energy and go at those on the left.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with Russell Moore, that those on the right have political idolatry and they don't like being challenged on it.
Right.
But they never devote as much energy towards political idolatry. There can't be political idolatry on the left, right?
Right.
They're free from political idolatry. It's the ones on the right who have political idolatry. So you're right. What they do is that they say there's a lot of political idolatry, and they always aim it at the people that are on the right who are Republicans. They never say, just all around, there's political idolatry.
Right.
Because there was no political idolatry that was revealed in 2020 on the left.
Yeah. Yeah. That's my big problem with the way he's setting the whole thing up.
Yeah.
Right. Be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If you think there's political idolatry,
Is there political idolatry on the right? Sure. Is there political idolatry on the left? Yes.
yeah, big time. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Let's go.
Know that because a lot of church people left their churches, not just Summit Church, but a lot of them, because of some disagreement over a relatively small political disagreement, at least small in light of the gospel and in light of eternity. Well, you didn't say enough about this particular cultural issue, so I'm leaving. Well, you said too much, so I'm leaving. And I would say to these people, some of whom have been at our church for years, for a decade, and I would say we agree on every point of gospel doctrine. We believe in the gospel. We believe in the authority and inerrancy of the Bible. We believe in the sanctity of life and marriage. I married your children. I walked with you through the tragedy of a death of a loved one, and now you are leaving because you disagreed because we said too much, one too many things about George Floyd. Or we said not enough.
I'll say this. I feel for the guy to have somebody, like pastors can be hurt by people, especially if you've invested a lot of time. Like it sounds like he's invested a lot of time in some of these people. Married their kids, walk with them through a dark time, maybe death and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So if you as a pastor have given like your life to somebody to help them and then they leave for whatever reason, that can hurt you. So I think he's speaking from a point of being hurt. And so I want to try to be at least, I guess, gracious in that regard, that when people speak from a place where they've been hurt by others, they don't say things as carefully maybe as they could. Like now you're off track, right? You're an expositor. It's something a pastor should be warned of.
Yeah.
Because people forget pastors are people too.
Right.
Stick to the text, exposit the text, explain it, illustrate it, help people. But when things become personal and you speak from some place where you've been wounded, your flesh is taking over, and you're probably not going to say things that are good.
Yeah, he's. I mean, now he has been spending time talking about himself for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And he's gonna continue talking about himself for a few more minutes.
Right.
And it becomes very self-serving. He's gone from the text, right?
Right.
Like, where's the text?
Yeah.
But also we have to. I mean, yeah. I understand where he's coming from. I mean, I've had plenty of people turn against me.
You're right.
I've had plenty of people that I thought were on my side, and then all of a sudden they're trying to get me fired.
Uh-huh.
Like, I get it. It takes some time to get over that. But also trying to see from their point of view, like how long did Summit Church shut down? Did they shut down for a year? Or they shut down for a long time?
They shut down for a long time, yeah. I don't know how long they were shut down, but they were shut down for a long time.
Yeah. Like, you need to be I mean, he's talking about people who are leaving the church over these minor differences. I would say shutting down your church for months and months and months maybe is not a minor issue, especially for some people. Some people are going to be like, we need to be here. Like, we are convicted that we need to be meeting. Mm-hmm. The George Floyd stuff. I mean, the more came out about the George Floyd, it's like he is not a martyr. Mm-hmm. He's not some kind of hero for the black community. Now, should he have been killed? Of course not. Like,
right.
there's a lot of things that were wrong with the way that Derek Chauvin dealt with that. I think.
Right. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that all of a sudden George Floyd is like Biden said, as influential, if not more, than Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah, a lot of these,
that's ridiculous.
A lot of these pastors, I think, like J.D. Greear, have become, what's the term that the communists used for? What is it?
Useful idiots.
Useful idiots.
Mm-hmm.
without knowing it, they've been conscripted
Right.
into advancing a political cause
Mm-hmm.
that's framed in a way with half-truths or sometimes truths that aren't even present. Now, to think back to the Thabiti thing, this I told you this the other day, when I knew, like, something's gone wrong with Thabiti. This was about maybe 7 years ago this happened. Could have been 6. When the hands up, don't shoot thing.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Hands up, don't shoot. What was his name? What was the young man's name that lost his life? Well, that wasn't the truth. That wasn't what happened at all. Like the story that was being pushed by those seeking to capitalize off the death of a young black man, which is what they do. They seize that opportunity to advance political cause. There was an entire lie that was being pushed by all of the media.
Michael Brown.
Yeah, Michael Brown was hands up, don't shoot. That he had his hands up, he was obeying commands. Cop pulls out a gun and just cuts him down, which would have been absolutely horrific. And so Thabiti was pushing that narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And then when all the facts came out, and that is not at all what happened, when it came out that he actually attacked the policeman in his vehicle, they struggled in the vehicle. He tried to take the policeman's gun away from him, struck the policeman, and ended up getting shot. That's something different entirely. But Thabiti pushed the false narrative.
Yeah, even Politico.com, which is not not known for being
Right.
super conservative. Hands Up, Don't Shoot ranked one of the biggest Pinocchios of 2015.
Right.
It's just a big lie that was...
Well, Thabiti pushed the lie hard.
Yeah.
In print and whatever mediums he had. He pushed it. And it was all a lie. He never repented of that. And so each time something like that happens, it's seized upon, and it's almost like pastors, they can't resist. Like J.D. Greear, I think, was used in 2020 to advance certain ideologies and causes that are framed in half-truths and lies. Instead of saying, like, what happened was immoral, that an image bearer had some dude was standing on the back of his neck for however long until he died.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of doing that and calling for justice to be done, because there were people of color standing around watching, like other policemen.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of addressing it like, hey, we got an image of God problem here. Like, we've dehumanized people so much that this is acceptable. You couldn't get away with that as a soldier. I told you that before. Like, if a soldier did that to some dude, he'd be court-martialed and, like, thrown in jail. But in America, somehow it's okay. And it's not because it's like a black and white problem. It's because because there was another video came out at the time. It was suppressed by the media. Something very similar happening to a white guy.
Mm.
And I can't remember if he went on to die or he was, like, in ICU for a long time. But the problem is the image of God problem. Right. But J.D. Greear was used, and many other pastors, to advance this other cause, which was literally tearing the nation apart. People were burning down cities over a deal that was phrased in a way in order to give as much political capital to one side in the election year as opposed to another. And so, yeah, I can understand why some people did not like that their pastor was doing that. Like, I can get it. I get it.
Yeah.
So I can get how he's hurt by it, but I also can get, like you're saying, that they would not be happy with that.
Yeah.
So should we keep going or?
Oh yeah, I got to get to what he calls them.
Okay.
Out him, or because we asked you to wear a mask for a season, or because we did not keep the mask mandate in place long enough.
Now,
Christians say
I agree with this stuff. What he's saying here, like, people are mad because, like, hey, you made us wear masks. Then there are other people who are, like, mad and they're like, you didn't make us wear masks long enough.
Yeah.
Thank God we didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Again, shout out to our church people at Christ Fellowship Church, the best church in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
No question. We grew through the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
They never gave us heart. We could be like, you know what? We should try to do this. And they'd have been like, okay. And even if some of them didn't like it.
Yeah.
and then we stop, and you know what? They don't go, God, like we didn't experience that,
Right.
but a lot of people did.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
The way the COVID thing has gone.
Yeah.
I don't know how he lumped this in with how he's going to attack the right, but he does. You know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cancel culture, but it was amazing to me how so many of us canceled our church over a relatively small disagreement.
He canceled his
And I
church
kind of
for
look
a
at that
while.
and I say, no wonder, because we pastors
Oh,
get to
dang,
disciple our
George.
people about 1 hour
Wow.
a week.
That was a good one,
Tucker
buddy.
Carlson and Sean Hannity and Rachel
I got to
Maddow get them
rewind
for
this.
3 hours.
All right.
And I kind of look at that and I say, no wonder, because we pastors get to disciple our people about 1 hour a week. And Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity and Rachel Maddow get them for 3 hours a night.
Okay. So he throws out Rachel Maddow because he's got to
try to balance it.
He's got to look like he's being balanced, but his whole thing has been attacking the right. And so he's not not attacking the left. He's attacking the right on the George Floyd stuff, the mask mandates. Like,
I'm just over here wondering, like, he's got a young church. Who in your church still watches TV? Like, people still watch TV? Like, everybody I know that watches TV is at least over 50 years old.
Yeah. And it's not, whose fault is it that they're being discipled more by the TV than by the church?
Probably the pastor's
Like,
fault.
he's the pastor, right?
Right.
Right? Disciple your people. I mean, if you're so worried that your people are watching Sean Hannity and they're just, parroting Fox News,
Right.
like, disciple your people so that they are trying to view things from a biblical perspective instead of just a political perspective.
Right.
Like, that's your job.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't.
But I just love that he threw out the, two conservatives and one liberal, but the entire
Who were the conservatives?
Everything he's been talking about has been
Who were the conservatives he put out?
Sean Hannity and who was the other person that he?
I don't know.
I don't know. They were both Fox News.
Okay.
Tucker Carlson.
Yeah. So that's it. 1 hour a day. Better-
I don't even know.
Gotta get-
I have no
Hey,
idea how long.
That's
these
how long
people
your
are-
church service is. 1 hour.
Yeah.
You got to get those numbers up, man. Those are rookie numbers. We're pushing 145 here, and and no complaints. They just love to be together.
How long are the Capitol Hill Baptist services?
They're pretty
like
long.
2 hours, aren't
Yeah,
they? 2.5.
Yeah. All right.
It's not long if you love doing it.
Yeah. That's why I go to baseball games. I could be there all day long. Just sit there, kick the feet up, get the umbrella out. I'll even take a nap. Wake up, watch it, keep watching some more.
Do you do that at church services too, Jim?
I don't take naps. I don't take naps at church, George.
Okay.
I almost did the other day, though. I told you about that. I confessed it to you. I was tired. All right, let's keep going.
When the church gets in bed with politics, the church gets pregnant. And the offspring does not look like our Heavenly Father. It looks like the synagogue of Satan. I know the slander of those who say they are Jews, and they are not. They're actually from the synagogue of Satan. They don't have satanic worship rituals. They don't put Satan on the roof. They don't sacrifice kittens, but they're from the synagogue of Satan. Friend, I'll just tell you right now, and I realize I'm kind of cruising over this at about 30,000 feet, but when somebody tells you that just loving your neighbor, just being willing to listen, just taking a humble posture toward those who are hurting, just not being quick to speak, to try to listen twice as much as you're making declaration, when those things make you a liberal, you know you are listening to somebody out of step with the Spirit of Christ. Or when somebody tells you that your refusal to put biblical...
Again, like we went to the right and left thing, how the folks like him always like to attack the right.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, we ought to listen. The listening only goes one way.
Yeah.
We need to listen to this other side, but never is it like, hey, let's listen to this other side. Let's sit down and not like maybe like call them synagogue of Satan. Maybe we sit down and listen. Right? It doesn't ever go that way.
Yeah.
So just something.
Authority behind a good but secondary political issue, when that makes you a liberal, they are speaking out of the synagogue of Satan.
I'm gonna
Wait,
just stop. I'm just gonna stop here.
Just one more second.
All right.
And they are necessarily from Satan, or that they are not a Christian. Just that conflating allegiance to Jesus Christ with allegiance to secondary world powers is a tactic of our enemy.
All right.
Let me tell you about tactics of the enemy.
So-
All right, I gotta interject here.
Okay.
I'm up for debating like every single issue between the right and the left.
Yeah.
Like debate it, friendly argumentation, merits of what would help the black community, what has the right done that's not been helpful historically. Have there been things like, one of the things I think honestly you can look at is how the VA home guarantees were done after World War II.
Yeah.
They were denying black soldiers. I think that's wrong, immoral,
Mm.
and it probably did generationally harm people, right? Because no home, no generational wealth. Like, you got to be able to have those conversations without being called a liberal if you want truth. So I'm down for debating any issue. We can debate what have the policies done, like the laws Biden put in place. How did they harm the black community, right? These drug laws, like let's talk. You could talk about all of these things. What do the Democrats have that maybe is actually more pro-freedom than something that we would like? You can do all that, but abortion is not a secondary issue.
Yeah.
And that he's talking about tactics of Satan. Tactics of Satan is getting people to say things like abortion is a secondary issue, that people should be allowed to debate and should be able to vote for people who are pro-abortion.
Yeah.
It's not a secondary issue. We're talking about murder. We're talking about one of the most clear things in the entirety of like God's revealed word. It's not a secondary issue. Your pro-choice means what you're for is it means you are pro a woman determining if someone lives or dies, right? Because the second a pro-choice person goes, I want to have a baby, everyone will celebrate with her.
Yeah.
And if the baby dies, like someone gets in a car wreck, the baby dies, they'll mourn, right? But if the woman, same age, says, I want to kill my baby, the liberals will rejoice in that woman being powerful woman. So pro-choice means you're pro for a woman literally playing God and determining whether someone lives or dies, right? There's nothing, if the Bible's not clear on that, the Bible's not clear on anything, that is immoral, that's wicked. So that bothers me a lot, because that's, when it comes between the two, right? That's the thing. Like, that's the big thing. There are other debates that can be had. What's the best way to stimulate the economy? Is central planning better than local? All that stuff. That's the one, George.
Here's my problem with, so first, the clip that we saw, these people are speaking out of the synagogue of Satan, and then he backs up and says, I'm not saying that they aren't Christians.
Right.
They're just, being used by the enemy. Like, if you read the passage, and again, he's gone. Like,
Right.
He's left the passage behind. He's doing something else. These people who say they're Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan, these are unbelievers. That's that's what's happening here. They're not actually Jews. You piece this together with other passages in the New Testament. Who's the one who's really a Jew?
Right.
He's not one who's one outwardly, but one who's inwardly.
Mm-hmm.
Romans
We are the true circumcision. Philippians 2.
Romans chapter 9. Not all who are children of Abraham are of Abraham.
Right.
So this is not. These are Christians, and they're just they're being used as tools of the devil. No, these are unbelievers. So he's like contradicting, and he's not dealing with the text, right? And what's going on here in Smyrna is not minor theological differences. Like, these are people who are opposed to Christians for the sake of the gospel, not because of George Floyd,
right,
or mask mandates. So he's not even in the text,
right.
So he's violating the text there.
And part of what's behind this is all of the heat like political within the SBC he got
Mm-hmm.
from, we're back to the beginning,
Right.
folks like Tom Buck
Yeah.
and Tom Askell, which part of this he already spoke once. He did it at the conference. I think
Yeah.
he used that whole catchy line, when the church gives birth, it looks like
Right,
Satan,
right.
whatever. The people seeking to hold him accountable, right, who would dare raise an issue with the Romans 1 sermon that he did.
Yeah.
And so he's been feeling that political pressure within the SBC for a while, before 2020.
Yeah. Well, and to ignore the fact that, I mean, the George Floyd stuff was so political.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that was in the clip that we saw, but watching a longer piece of the chapel really reveals what's going on here, because he would say, when I was the president of the SBC, when we were making decisions, we would see who was opposing it.
Mm-hmm.
If only one side was opposing it, then maybe we're off. But if you're getting heat from both sides, like those that are more on the left and more those are on the right, then, we're probably right. Like, these are good decisions. His foundation for how to make decisions is completely devoid of the Bible.
Mm.
Like, you can watch a bigger chunk of the sermon, and he says that, like,
Mm-hmm.
if he's gauging things based on who's opposing him.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a good.
Right.
That's you should be getting opposed from the left, right?
Right.
Like those who are pro-choice, those who are pro-LGBTQ, those who are pro-trans. Like, you should be expecting to get that,
Right.
But that's still not your standard. Your standard's the Word of God.
Mm-hmm.
And as if he's trying to be central, like, he's trying to be a centrist, right?
Yeah.
But the center can shift,
Yeah.
because even those that are conservative are more liberal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't just gauge, am I doing things right, because I'm trying to stay in the center. That's not.
The center is always drifting left.
Yeah, that's not a good standard. Your
Mm-hmm.
standard has to be God's word. And whenever he's talking about this stuff, he's never talking about God's word.
Right.
Even when he's talking about the George Floyd or the mask mandates, he's gauging everything based on personal opinion. What does God's word say?
Mm-hmm.
Even with the mask mandates, you have to ask, what does God's word allow and what does it not allow?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Does it allow for church leaders to say, if you're not wearing a mask, you can't come and worship God? I don't know. Like, we got to see what God's word says.
Right.
We can't, there's churches that are setting up like segregated services between the vaccinated and the non-vaccinated.
Which makes total sense, considering the vaccinated spread the viral load. The amount of viral load they carry is like way higher than the unvaccinated. They spread it all over the place.
Yeah.
Again, not misinformation. Fact.
Yeah.
That's fact.
Right. But what does the
segregate your church?
What does the Bible say? What does the Bible say? Does the Bible say that we segregate our worship services based upon some kind of non-biblical basis?
Right. Yeah.
But you're not hearing J.D. Greear speak that way.
Yeah.
And you're not. I mean, obviously, you're not going to be able to please everybody,
Mm-hmm.
because there's going to be people that don't want to submit to what the Bible teaches.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're always going to want to try to bring in something else. But that's our standard. Our standard has to be God's word. It can't just be where's the center.
Yeah. The whole reason we brought the clip in, people might wonder why you bring J.D. Greear into this and like even talk about this. Well, because this is people in our church are exposed to this stuff, and maybe they disagree on him on a lot of things. Does that make them synagogue of Satan?
Right.
Like, there's the whole reason. Like, if you're feeling bad because we just diced up J.D. Greear, well, we didn't call his church a synagogue of Satan.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he just directly talking about our church, just that there could be people in our church that felt like, hey, he just threw a bomb at me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and we didn't get to it, but Trevin Wax, he posted a blog article on the Gospel Coalition website a few days ago, and it's entitled "Gotcha Sermon Clips Are Bad for the Church."
yeah.
And he's saying things. It's interesting that he does this after the Michael Todd clip
Spitting in the
went
face.
viral. Like, is this helpful for the church? Is this edifying for the church? And his final conclusion is, I'm not going to be a part of stuff like that.
Well, I'll tell you why it is helpful for the church, because we're raising up a bunch of people in our church that will have discernment. So if if the military moves them somewhere, guess what? They're not going to go to some joker's church who spits on people's faces.
And we can't just assume that our kids are going to grow up and stay in this church.
Right.
Like, they could move all across the country, all across the world. They need to know what to look for and what are some red flags.
Yeah.
And that Michael Todd clip was not a gotcha clip.
Right.
Like, we played the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a gotcha clip. It came out that he's done the same thing 2 years ago.
Yeah.
He spit and rubbed spit on a guy's face 2 years ago. So that kind of cast some doubt on his apology that he gave after it, because he's already done it. And in the first clip 2 years ago, he said this is nasty.
Yeah.
That was his apology. That was nasty. He already knew it. Like it's disingenuous.
Right.
So, and this J.D. Greear thing, it's not a gotcha clip. Like, just listen to the whole thing and see what how he goes off the rail and how it's really self-serving.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to be aware of this stuff. We're trying to, like you said, train our people in discernment. So we're not just trying to do a gotcha clip. We're not going after J.D. Greear just because we've got some personal beef with J.D. Greear. So this Trevin Wax article, it's not getting good. It's not getting good remarks on Twitter, because people are seeing through this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, this idea that if you're calling out people, then you're the bad guy. That's the tactic, right?
Right.
Like, that's where it's shifted, that we shouldn't be calling out these guys who are solid on their theology just because they say something.
Well, you
wrong.
remember how popular Jen Hatmaker used to be among like all women, conservative evangelical. And like, guess who noticed first, George? Guess who it was? It was pastors. It was the men,
Right.
practicing discernment. They said, something's wrong here, and then they would be attacked. You guys, this isn't helpful to the church. Your criticism. Same thing Trevin Wax is doing.
Yeah.
Where'd Jen Hatmaker end up?
She's LGBT
Full
confirming,
blown,
right?
Full blown.
It's her daughter. Isn't her daughter?
I don't know. I don't know what her daughter's.
Homosexual?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think so. I think maybe her daughter's homosexual.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Right.
Like, again, like, they're letting their kids inform their positions, right?
Yeah, I don't know if in this case that drove it, or her mom's shift drove her going over to it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, who knows?
Yeah. All right, you want to do the honors?
Sure. Yeah. All right. Well, we talked about quite a bit today. Hopefully it's been beneficial and edifying for you. Go back and if you're interested, want to see if we're taking things out of context, go back and watch these clips. They're available on YouTube. But we are trying to look at things from a biblical worldview. We want you to have a biblical perspective on all things, because we want you to become more and more conformed to Christ. So that's our goal. If it's been helpful, please like, share, subscribe, get the word out, and we'll see you next time on Conformed to Christ.